Before you were born, you were imagined, not as a concept, not as a plan, but as a piece of art. What if I told you the most fundamental question about existence itself isn't philosophical at all? It is artistic. When you look at a painting in a gallery, you're not looking at the artist. The artist exists outside the canvas, separate, unreachable. But the essence is there in every brushstroke, every color, every deliberate choice. The painting carries something of the painter, a message, an expression, something the artist needed to communicate. Now think about yourself, not as a person walking through a gallery, but as the painting itself. God is the artist and you are his work. This is what omnipresence actually means. Not some abstract man sitting in the sky watching everything. That's a child's understanding. God's art stretches across all of human life, across the trees, the wind, the sun, the stars. Life itself is his canvas. We are all conscious expressions of something greater. But here's the thing about paintings. No painting, no matter how masterful, can fully account for the inner world of its artist. No gallery, no matter how vast, will contain the totality of the artist's consciousness. We are not God, we are just his art. The internet will tell you an artist is someone who creates paintings or drawings as a hobby or profession, but that is not what an artist is. An artist is someone who communicates the human experience, someone who looks inwards to understand their own inner life and finds authentic ways to express it. Singers, writers, actors, comedians, painters. All of them must face what most people never will: the contradictions, the complexity, the ambiguity, the discomfort of their authentic inner experience, and then they must express it publicly. Take a comedian. Even the funniest jokes arise from inner contradiction, shaped and softened with humor to reach an audience. Aaron Magruder's The Boondocks, a comedic cartoon, yes, but also a profound expression of his pain with African American culture. The difference between a hobbyist and a true artist is the depth of the inner life they channel, the authenticity of the message they convey. God does the same thing. Martin Luther King Jr. himself was an artist, not of the brushstroke, but of speech. His art demanded unity. His message carved freedom into all of the lives of African Americans. He is dead, but his expression lives on in the liberties his work made possible. This doesn't mean every African American is MLK. It just means his art echoes through the lives he touched, shaping reality beyond his physical presence. This is the spiritual realm. This is the principle. Art transcends physical death through its lasting impact. Now consider God. The universe is his infinite canvas, vast and beyond our comprehension. We see it like a child staring at a master painter's raw chaos, unable to grasp the mind behind the artistry. Just as MLK's art manifests through human freedom, God's artistry manifests through our authenticity. When we create, we engage fully with our inner contradictions, our fears, our vulnerabilities. We participate in the original act of creation itself. An artist unwilling to be vulnerable cannot truly succeed in the act of life. Authenticity is the medium, and we are all artists in a way. The spiritual realm is not a place of ghosts or ghouls. It is the emotional residue of human expression, the trace left behind every word, every act, every creation. The light and the dark intermingle here, the hope, the love, the courage we project alongside our fears, our failures, and our cruelties. The spirit is not as abstract as we think. It is the emotional marker, the message we leave upon the world that outlives our physical expression. It's what our consciousness leaves upon existence. This is the mirror of our deepest truths. Every genuine act leaves a mark echoing in this realm, every inauthentic act does too. Nothing is truly lost, however subtle, it remains in the infinite mystery of consciousness. The spiritual is both mirror and medium. It reflects who we truly are, and it's the canvas on which God's artistry continues to unfold through our participation. The more we fully engage with our inner contradiction, our fear, and our vulnerability, the more distortion gets clarified. Whatever you create into this world is pulled from unconsciousness or consciousness. Either way, the artist of any medium is spiritual, even if they don't know it. To create authentically is to converse upon this plane of existence. Whether you generate into this world leaves an abstract impact, whether you perceive it or not. Take generational trauma. Rulers, governors, social systems long before us left all these inauthentic marks that warped human expression. Through artistic creation, individuals restore their true image, repair distortion, leaving tangible messages that resonate beyond themselves, shaping the emotional and moral landscapes for others. But if the spiritual realm is where authentic expression endures, then there is an opposite existence, a force constantly pulling us away from this truth. If the spirit in health is the domain of authenticity, the flesh is its opposite. This is our socially constructed self, the ego. The flesh is forged for comfort. It seeks to conform, to seek approval, to perform, to survive via appearances. It is shaped by other people's expectations, by the norms and pressures of society. Living in the flesh means choosing reward over reality, living a false illusion. It is popularity without depth, wealth without purpose, platform without meaning. Fleshly things bring temporary satisfaction, but they leave no lasting trace. The flesh dies with the body, and its achievements die too. Morality becomes distorted from this lens. The seven deadly sins are not inherent moral failings. Greed is born out of scarcity. Wrath becomes oppression. Lust becomes unmet emotional need. These are distortions of natural value, born in the denial of the authentic self. When the inner self is unknown, a fleshly temporal value system is adopted and projected outwards. In contrast, authenticity requires wrestling with discomfort, fear, and contradiction. It exposes the self to risk, but leaves an enduring impact. Where the flesh fades and the spirit endures, where the void remains and the spirit fills. This clarifies why true engagement with life will always be of cost, but will never be meaningless. But breaking free from the flesh's grip requires something most mistake for weakness: the courage to wrestle openly with doubt and discomfort, the will to be vulnerable. Blind faith is a hollow reverence that mistakes compliance for understanding. The blindness is moral ignorance, denial of your own shadow, avoidance of contradiction and discomfort. It has fueled countless atrocities, slavery, genocide, colonialism. Blind faith becomes a state controlled tool in which political, social, or economic ideology becomes moralized with religion. This will occur again and again and again until conscious change intervenes. The devil's greatest deception lies in his ability to convince one that idolatry of the state or self is divinely sanctified. True faith, by contrast, is epistemic humility, the recognition that your message is no greater than any one person's. You cannot comprehend the infinite in its entirety. True faith is the trust that your authentic ways of being carry spiritual meaning beyond the constraints of this world. You act because it is you, and you trust God's design in the authenticity of yourself. Authenticity is not always serene, it's often uncertain. True engagement with God involves wrestle, doubt, questioning. Job challenged God openly over the hypocrisy and piety of his friends. He argued for his injustices, he argued for his pains, he argued for his confusions. He refused to hide his anguish and uncertainty in God's reasoning, yet his authentic confrontation was honored. We do not know the fullness of God, nor the vastness of his cosmic reasoning. To claim certainty would undermine his scale. Job was rewarded not for blind faith, but for the honest wrestle. Now look at Jesus Christ himself, the central figure of the Bible. He did the same. At his greatest moment of suffering, he spoke words of uncertainty. His final cries were raw and human. God made flesh could even acknowledge the absurdity of his own creation. His dialogue was complete emotional exposure. If Christ himself did not perform constant reverence, pretend to have certainty in God's will, it is blasphemous to be certain in the knowing of God's plan, because not even Jesus Christ himself did that. This honest wrestling with the divine is not a deviation from Scripture, it's precisely what the Scripture documents. The Bible is best seen as one very sharp self help book. It is filled with anecdotes, stories, commands. The words may be sharp, but the inner experience is too. Contradiction, complexity, ambiguity, struggle, all factors of the inner experience, all topics the Bible covers. The Bible can be read as a human articulation of experiences with God, conveying divine creativity through authentic human voices. The authority that comes with it is not from the writers themselves, but their deeply explored authenticity. The egoic self has been removed to see the message given onto the clearest. We are all pieces of art, but when we get distorted by the broken conditions of this world, we lose access to our painted message. When we lose access to our message, we lose the face of God. It is the Bible's role to maintain his image, not to dogmatically enforce his law. Understanding the Bible this way exposes a dangerous counterfeit that has plagued religious practice for centuries, a doctrine of shame and not love. People say love is a drug, but in truth, love is an entity beyond us that revolutionizes our capacity to comprehend consciousness. Love is a form of spiritual enlightenment I nickname functional delusion. This is the moment where your mind is widened beyond its ordinary frame. It reveals patterns, possibilities, and truths that a limited conscious mind cannot see. The delusion exists only because you're seeing from a perspective others cannot see, a sense of clarity mistaken for error or ignorance simply because it arrives to you early. The most powerful force God provides is love, not as an emotion, but as a spiritual power. The human world is governed by logic, yes, yet love has the capacity to overwrite this logic. When action is taken in love, it is of the highest virtue in the spirit. It is the marker of existence that lasts the longest and affects the most. Love has a strange attribute when expressed. It will always create a great impact, an impact beyond logic's reach. It explains why people chase ambitions that logic insists are out of reach. When the force of love becomes rooted in purpose, the mind expands enough to pursue it against all odds, societal, political, or economic. It is only hidden behind one thing: exposure. To achieve great transformation, exposure is necessary. The currency God demands for one to access the force of love is the abandonment of fear. In the end, most people are looking for one thing, whether they consciously acknowledge it or not. We all have the desire to be authentic, but the fear of being vulnerable. We surround ourselves and feel alone, buy clothes and feel empty, embrace pleasures and still feel a void. The authentic being could be considered this void. It is what is missing. Authenticity does not pay kindly in terms of the flesh, however. Even Jesus Christ himself, the most authentic man to walk the world, died at 30. The duty of an artist is not to comfort, but honestly confront the ways of this world. The true price to pay for salvation is emotional exposure. Love cannot exist without vulnerability.